Hi, Desert Hot Springs. Scott Mattis, your mayor. I know it's been a long time since I've actually given one of these reports, but it felt it was really important this summer to kind of catch up on a lot of things. We last talked, I think, closer to the beginning of the year about updates in Desert Hot Springs, and it's been a while. I think a lot of us have been coming out of COVID and doing our thing and trying to get back into our routines and everything. So I wanted to get back and really give you a good update about what's going on in Desert Hot Springs over the last 6 months. So coming out of COVID, it's been very important that Desert Hot Springs continues to move forward. And I know a lot of cities weren't as fortunate as Desert Hot Springs when it came financially. They relied a lot on tourism and stuff. Desert Hot Springs did not. And with only about a $300,000 to $400,000 deficit, we were able to cover that during COVID. And I wanted to make that very clear because it did not stop services in Desert Hot Springs, and we are continuing to move forward. So more of an update on what's going on in Desert Hot Springs, messaging signs. There's been a lot of discussion on the road closures into Palm Springs and some of Desert Hot Springs areas. And then about 2 years ago, we commissioned a study that was going to be done with what they call a blow sand study. An initial discussion was talked about at the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. And we moved forward now a couple years later, and we're going to actually commission a full study to be done. Within that study, the initial study, we decided messaging signs would be important for travelers in and around our city. So the cities of Palm Springs and the city of Desert Hot Springs will have two of the first messaging signs available to our community. The first messaging sign is going to be at the intersection of Palm Drive and Varner. This will actually let you know when you're traveling outside the city if Palm Drive geometry is closed, and possibly if Indian's closed, so that this will give you alternative routes that you can head off to so you don't get stuck at the freeway trying to get on the freeway and figure out how you're going to get to work, whether you work in Palm Springs or other desert cities. So look forward to that soon. You will see that there were some supply chain issues on getting that message sign delivered and in operations, but the footings have been poured, and you'll soon see the messaging sign go up. I get a lot of questions about the cannabis industry. How is it doing? People read the Wall Street Journal. They read a lot of different websites and financial pages, and there's the market goes up and down. Desert Hot Springs cannabis industry seems to be really strong. This year we were projected at close to $8.5 million, and we'll be a little less than that in revenue coming in, but not much. That continues to mean that the industry is strong in Desert Hot Springs. We've had no businesses actually close up and move away. All our businesses continue to thrive and continue to pay their taxes. So I wanted to put that out there right away. Our dispensaries are doing very well and continue to be making plenty of money so that the sales tax comes into the general funds. And then as Jan Pai had led many years ago, she wanted to make sure that 25% of all that revenue goes into our reserves so that we continue to keep healthy reserves so that if there's ever an emergency in Desert Hot Springs, we don't end up like we were in 2012, 11, 12, where we had no reserves and we weren't able to continue our budget forward and we had to make a lot of cuts. So that is very positive for us, and the cannabis industry is a very, very big piece of us having our reserves strong to this day. Cleanup efforts in Desert Hot Springs, we started a cleanup committee last year, and it kind of fizzled out a little bit. So we're actually reorganizing it right now. We're working on other options. The Desert Hot Springs has housing money, and that's set aside by the state, and we can use it in certain ways. So I'm coming up with a creative plan to work with some of our volunteers to see how we can use that housing money to clean up some of our neighborhoods. We're not blind to the fact that we have cleanup needs in some of our neighborhoods, and if we can work a program, that'll be important to that. If you're interested in volunteering for that, please send me an email or give me a phone call, and I'll get you on that committee. We get a lot of questions about homeless in our community. What can we do to help them? What can we do to get them off of our sidewalks? What can we do to get them jobs? This is a never-ending battle in most cities. Unfortunately, during COVID, it actually was a really big spike in homelessness in throughout our state. Some of the homeless from the Los Angeles and other large metropolitan areas have made their way this way as they found ways to be able to survive better in these types of areas. With that said, Desert Hot Springs is very compassionate about our homeless, and we're working very close with trying to find programs that will help them. Anyone with mental health needs or addiction needs, we'll give an opportunity for public safety to be able to reach out to them and get them in front of a judge who could put them in a program that will help them off the streets. Some of our biggest challenges are when our homeless are offered services and they decline those services. So this is I believe, a positive step forward in making our working with our homeless to help them off the streets. And that leads me to a discussion about code enforcement. So our code enforcement is working hard all the time. We have a very small department. They're out being very reactive to a lot of complaints in our community, and we have to try to manage their workload. With that said, we've hired some contractors to come in and help with that workload, to focus on Palm Drive and some of our areas of need in our community. They'll be out working with our business owners to make sure that they keep their businesses looking well, keeping them up to the standards that they're forced to keep them up to, and really make our community look great. You know, we spent a lot of money 5 years ago when I became mayor to really clean up our image of Desert Hot Springs and focus on our medians and our roads and those types of things, and we can't let that go. So having this new agency come in and assist our code enforcement with that will really keep us on track on being proactive in our commercial districts. There was a recent discussion on social media about fees, and you know, it's really hard to get on social media and try to put the facts out there because there's a lot of keyboard warriors, and I don't mean that I'm too offensive, but there is, and people get very brave behind social media, and they say things that are just absolutely ridiculous. If you come across a fee in Desert Hot Springs that you think is high, please reach out to me or any of the council members, even any of our staff, executive staff, or department heads, and talk about those fees. The City of Desert Hot Springs is like any government in the state of California and in the United States. You can't profit on fees. So our fees are not put together so that we can make a profit. Our fees are put together to collect what we have behind the scenes. So that means all the way down from the person working on the paperwork all the way up to the person that's helping you on the counter. So they're basically recovering the fees of our individuals working for the city. There was recently a discussion about a fee at the police station. A person walked in and had a ticket and needed to get it signed off, and there was a $45 fee to that. And yes, that is some of the higher fees for that type of service in the Coachella Valley. Put it in perspective, there's a nexus study that's done whenever these fees come out, and all the council members supported that nexus study. Now there's hundreds of fees on there, and we can't look at maybe every fee and see what is comparable to all the other cities. Yes, California Highway Patrol does sign off tickets, fix-it tickets as they call them, free. But you do pay for that in your taxes when you go to the gas pump and other places. Now, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department is a very large organization across the whole Riverside County, and they're able to take their fees based on the whole population that they serve, and that fee is a lot less than what Desert Hot Springs is. Now, to put all that in perspective, Desert Hot Springs is a very small police department. We have not as many staff as other police departments, so that fee does sometimes become a little higher. If you feel these fees are high, instead of putting all over Facebook that our department's corrupt and that our police department doesn't care, why don't you come reach out to your council members? Short-term vacation rentals. This was a big discussion with the city council in the last few months. We had a subcommittee that was set up by a couple council members, and they went over for last year trying to look at what short-term vacation rentals are doing for Desert Hot Springs or what they're not doing for Desert Hot Springs. And to put the facts on the table, I don't want to put political opinions on the table, but to put the facts on the table, there was 3 items brought forward to the city council. One was a stronger ordinance that would support the short-term rentals in our community, and that ordinance actually was the second reading happened in August at a special meeting, and we actually will, not a special meeting, but a meeting that wasn't scheduled to happen, so we scheduled that meeting. And then in early September, I believe the 1st or the 2nd, that actual ordinance will go into effect, which has a lot of stronger enforcement when it comes to the short-term vacation rentals. We understand that there's pockets of multiple homes in some communities that have caused a little bit of an uproar due to the fact that they have what they call party homes. So we are very open to the fact that what was brought forth by the subcommittee was an enforcement arm. So we've hired a firm to come out and enforce STVRs, as they call them. So this firm will be in place, and they'll actually roam during the height of vacation rentals, which is usually Thursday through Sunday, and they will actually be answering the phone calls of any complaints that are made on the hotline. And you can find that hotline on the city website, or you can always call the non-emergency line or police department, and they'll get that message out to that code enforcement person who will go out. Our enforcement is going to be very strict. We'll have a $1,000 fine if you're not adhering the first time. We'll have a second fine of $2,000, and the third time you'll get a strike and you get your license removed, and you cannot be a part of the STVR program anymore. The third issue that was taken up was the fact of put a moratorium and or restrictions on how many could be in a neighborhood. Now, it was kind of a split vote by the city council, but the majority supported the fact that we're going to let this ordinance go into effect for 6 months. We're going to see if the clusters kind of thin out, and if they don't, then we're going to bring back a discussion on how many we should limit in certain areas that are being affected by multiple owners owning multiple homes in certain areas. So we're going to look at a lot of the information over the next 6 months and help hopefully clean that up and find a good medium area that everybody can really work with. You got to remember these STVRs do bring in quite a bit of revenue for our community, close to $1 million with the ones that will be captured in the near future. And then we are going to be collecting back on some of the ones that did not register in the past. So there's quite a bit of revenue here coming in, and we've got to be able to balance that if we're going to. Our local mixed martial arts studio, Kihon Mixed Martial Arts, is actually traveling right now with multiple students to be fighting for the World Championships here real soon. So we're really looking forward to seeing what kind of medals they bring back and supporting them as they continue to move forward with that great program. Desert Hot Springs Little League just ended recently, and we'll actually be announcing very soon on new signups. They start in January, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. As most of you know, City of Desert Hot Springs under their recreational program have taken over Desert Hot Springs Little League. Desert Hot Springs Youth Football is actually working right now. They've got their opening day. They've got multiple games coming up playing at the high school, so please go out and support them also. And Desert Hot Springs AYSO season starting soon too. So lots of youth sports going out there. You know me, I'm a big sports guy, so please support our youth sports in our community so that we can make sure our youth have something to do and not on the streets. And there's a lot of other programs through our recreational center that I'd love you to go check out, and through our school districts to make sure that our youth aren't on the streets. And if there's some other program that you think would be important for our youth in our community, please contact me. Let's talk about it and see what we can do to get it started. That brings me to our parks of our community. Over the next year, you're going to see a lot of renderings coming out of our parks and reconstruction and renovation of our current parks. We've put a lot of work into 3 of our major parks over time, but we really have to start expanding our parks. So Reflection Park, Veterans Park, they're going to be redone over the next few years. And then we're looking at building a brand new park in what they call the Choya Park, which is at the Choya and Hacienda Streets intersection there where the city yard is, and we're going to be building a new baseball field, football field, and some other activities for our community moving forward. There's also a park master plan that's being redone by the community of Desert Hot Springs, and that'll be coming forward to the city council very soon. I was very fortunate this year in May to go to the International Conference of Shopping Centers in the city of in the city of Las Vegas. It's the biggest conference across the nation, and it was really well attended this year coming out of COVID, and we were able to make a lot of contacts. And I think you're going to see over the next few months with the city, the census showing that we're the fastest growing city in the Coachella Valley, growing from 28,000 to just under 33,000. You're going to see a lot of commercial development over the next few years. We have a lot of interest in Desert Hot Springs, and we're watching the inflation and the small recession that we're having here. But once we get out of all that, I think you're going to see a lot of development coming to Desert Hot Springs. So more to be announced. My state of the city has been pushed a couple times this year due to scheduling, but we're looking at in the middle of November here, and we'll be able to make hopefully some great announcements on some new development for Desert Hot Springs. This leads me down to the downtown Pierson area. A lot of you know that we've been planning that area. Years ago, we had this big vortex plan for our downtown area. It was huge, it was very expensive, and it was just not really obtainable financially. So we started smaller. We're starting from west to Cactus on Pierson, and we're starting with a walkable district, and we're planning that now. We're hoping the next couple of years to see this develop into a family-oriented walking restaurants and those types of businesses for the family to be able to go to. Leads me into the major road projects that will be coming to Desert Hot Springs. So very soon here, you'll start seeing construction from Pierson all the way to Mission Lakes Boulevard on Palm Drive. It's going to be reconstructing to kind of go with what we've done to the south end, adding street lights and sidewalks and crosswalks and a stop sign and new roadway along that way. So be cautious when you're in that area. Construction will be starting soon, and it's probably going to last for somewhere up to about 6 to 8 months. As a lot of you know, reports recently were that the city of Desert Hot Springs spent about $1.7 million on our dispatch center. Now that's partly true. We did spend $1.7 million. But what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of that was federal funding. And then the state's 911 system is actually going to reimburse us a large percentage of that back. Now, with that said, we have a state-of-the-art dispatch center, the actual state-of-the-art dispatch center in the state of California, the first, meaning that the state of California has gone to a cloud-based system. And the city of Desert Hot Springs will have the only dispatch center that is that state of the art. So with that said, we're looking forward to that. In the next 30 days, it'll be opening up, and all your calls for 911 will go through the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. Now, fire won't be dispatched out of that. It'll actually still go to Paris, California. But you'll have operators here in Desert Hot Springs at our own dispatch center, answering your phone calls for emergency services. And I wanted to kind of finish up here with districting. If you are in a district, so let me go back one step. The City of Desert Hot Springs was forced to take their elections to districts. This is a new law that's been put together by the state of California, and when you're challenged by certain organizations, you have to outweigh the possibility of going from an at-large election to a district election. So the City of Desert Hot Springs went through the process, and then the council members were very happy with the current process and the current law, but it is what we had to take care of. So what we're trying to do here in Desert Hot Springs is make you aware of what the districts are. There's 4 districts for 4 council members. The mayor will still be elected at large. My seat is not up for 2 more years, and 2 council members are not up for 2 more years. This means there's 4 districts and 2 council members live in the same district that are not up this year. When they are up for election, then they'll have to make a choice. This means that District 4, which is in the Hacienda Heights area, will not be represented right away, but as the mayor of Desert Hot Springs will represent the whole city. So if you're looking for representation, I will always be there for you. It does not preclude any of the council members from also representing you. But the districts in this current election that's coming up this November will be District 1 and District 3. Currently representing those districts is Gary Gardner, and he is running for re-election, and Jan Pye in District 3, which she is also running for re-election to her seat. Those 2 seats will be up. So some of you might be confused when you receive your ballot because you won't have a council member to vote for. Only people within those districts will vote for that. And on our city website, and if you can see my screen here, so when you go to the city website, it's cityofdhs.org. cityofdhs.org. And that gets you to the city website. The city just redid its website, so it might be a little newer to some of you than when you go to navigate it. But just go up to this little tab here where it says departments. So once you're on the departments, you'll just go down to these little departments there, and you'll tab on the city clerk. Our city clerk is Gerald Suriano, and he has all kinds of opportunities for you to look at different things when it comes to the election. District elections, you'll press on that, and that'll give you the final maps that were voted on by the City of Desert Hot Springs. And if you actually go to this interactive mapping tool, it'll actually come up with an interactive map for you to look at. And you'll see each of the districts are outlined here in the City of Desert Hot Springs. You've got District 2, which council members Nunez and Betts live in, and they represent that district right now. District 1, which Gary Gardner represents. District 4, which I spoke about not being represented this election. It does happen when you get district elections happening. You've got to let people term out before you can represent certain areas. And District 3, which Jan Pye represents. And you can kind of go to these maps and you'll see how this is Pierson Boulevard, Palm Drive, and how we kind of made them into 4 quadrants in our community to make them as fair as possible, that the law pretty much outlines on how you have to do that. So District 1 will seem a lot bigger, District 2 will seem a lot bigger, but it goes by population and votings, and there's a couple other formula pieces in there that put this together. But some of the districts might look a lot bigger, but they actually represent the same amount of population in each district. Jan Pye is kind of in the older northern end of the city on the east side, so her district seems a little smaller, but it's very more concentrated with population. So again, if you were to live on, let's say, Pierson Boulevard, or let's say Mesquite and Coma here, so you would just zoom in, and you can actually zoom into where your home is, and you can see exactly what district you're in. I bring this to your attention so that you, again, don't feel like you're not able to vote for your council member. You might get a ballot this year that will not have a council member on it, and you might want to call the city and say, well, I'm not voting for a council member. Well, now you'll know. So if you have further questions on that, please reach out to our office, reach out to our city clerk's office. They'll try to guide you on that, and we'll go from there. Desert Hot Springs, I know there's been a lot of information packed into this report here, but I thought it was really time to give you a great update. I appreciate everything that's going on in our community to keep our community alive. Our image is so important to us, so if you can relay a positive image about Desert Hot Springs wherever you go, that's the fight that we always have. Desert Hot Springs is a wonderful, small, large town, and I always say small, large town because it's got that small town feel, but we're growing very fast, and we're trying to keep up with that growth. I hope that your city council continues to do what you want them to do. We are off for the summer on meetings. We come back the first week of September, which will be very soon, and our meetings are every Tuesday, or the first and third Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. You can find all the information on the cityofdhs.org website. If you have any further questions, feel free to always reach out to me so that I can get the answers that you need. I work on facts, and that's what I like to work on, and that's what I always do for you, is bring you the facts. Thank you, Desert Hot Springs.